Brian Windhorst back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Brian?
And back in studio in L.A. for the first time in 14 months this week.
I saw that. That's one of the reasons why. That's one of the reasons why I waited till a decent hour to text you, Brian.
Well, during the playoffs, I'm up pretty early, unfortunately.
I bet. Why are Why is Los Angeles basketball seasons on the brink, Brian?
Well, different reasons. I mean, the Lakers are just really banged up. And not only that, but their team is inadequately constructed to handle the challenge that's in front of them, which is that without Anthony Davis, they really need LeBron to ramp up his scoring. And the way LeBron does that is by attacking the paint, and either off the dribble or getting in there with his back turned and going to work. And number one, I don't think that ankle is allowing him to do it. I don't know if he'll ever admit it, but if you look at his array of moves that he's using in this series, it's not his normal array. He hasn't gone to a spin move and other stuff like that. I just don't believe he has the same strength in there. And then because the Lakers cannot buy an outside shot, and Andre Drummond is a guy who they're now playing, the Suns pack the paint. You can see it as you watch this series go along. Sort of the resting position that the Suns take on defense. In other words, where they're watching the ball, they've gone from being 3 or 4 steps outside the paint to the other night, Tuesday night, their players literally had a foot in the paint when LeBron was looking to go there. And now all of a sudden we're back to like 2007 LeBron with those Cavs teams where he had to be superhuman to get it up onto the rim. And so, they're really their only hope, that I see tonight is that some of their guys start hitting some of those outside shots and at least, get the points up or at least force the Suns to rethink their strategy. And I think it's a big lift. It could happen. I mean, I've seen LeBron do it dozens of times, but the Suns are clearly in better shape, and we'll see if Anthony can play. I think he's going to, try it. I don't know how effective he's going to be. And then with the Clippers, Rich, they're a very maddening team. Last night, Luka Doncic outplayed Kawhi Leonard. That's just the truth of the matter. And, look, Luka is potentially an all-time great, and Kawhi has been really good in this series. I'm not saying that Kawhi Leonard should be, dragged because he got outplayed by a guy who could be an MVP in the very near future. But this is why losing games 1 and 2 at home is so damn hurtful, because now you have your star outplayed and you're on the brink because of the effort level and the intensity level and everything like that they brought out in those first 2 games. And that's a penalty that they're now really having to face.
So let's take it one at a time then. Lakers get eliminated tonight. And what do you think their summer looks like going into the fall? What do they do? What are the moves that this team needs to make, do you think?
Well, Rich, Dennis Schroeder turned down a contract extension for a lot of money in February. And I wonder how he feels about that, because Schroeder has been awful. He's just been awful. Frankly, he hasn't been the same player since he got COVID. Maybe he's feeling effects that, Jason Tatum talked about how it was tugging on him for months, that he was having breathing issues for months. Schroeder, and it's his personal health situation, so, he has every right to keep it private. And when Schroeder has been asked about COVID, he's gotten very angry. He doesn't want to talk about it. That's fine, but I don't know what you want me to say. He got COVID. He came back. He's not been the same player, and frankly, he's been awful in this series. He was absolutely dreadful, and he's their biggest free agent. And the thing about it is it's not a zero-sum thing. It's not like they can say, okay, Dennis, you didn't work out for us. Thank you. Good luck to you. Now we're going to go sign Kyle Lowry. It doesn't work that way, because the way it works in the NBA is you can't go over the salary cap to sign players unless they're your players on your team. And if the Lakers lose tonight, and depending on how it goes, I suspect in the array of stories that come out afterwards and in the array of analysis, you're going to hear Kyle Lowry's name discussed a lot. Because ultimately the Raptors didn't trade him, so it's really hard to know, this would have done it. But, what we believe happened is that the Lakers were not willing to put Talen Horton-Tucker into the trade in addition to Dennis Schroeder, and could not get Kyle Lowry back, and because they wanted to protect their young asset, their young good player for the future. And, Horton-Tucker has been at times in this series not even gotten off the bench, although he did play well on Tuesday, and I expect him to have a bigger role tonight. And so that's really the thing that we're going to see, is there something that you can do with Dennis Schroeder or sign and trading Dennis Schroeder to improve him? Horton-Tucker is also a free agent, but he's restricted, and so they would have control on keeping him. But that's going to be a real big thing. One of the things about when you have a championship team, sometimes it can be tough to improve it. And, their free agent signing that they made, their big free agent signing last year was Montrezl Harrell, who has basically not been a factor in this series. So, I think there was a bunch of things that are going to have to be improved.
What if the Clippers get bounced? Is it possible that Kawhi bounces himself? What do you think?
Rich, first off, I have not heard anything about that, and I'm just going to go back to when he was a free agent 2 years ago.
Right.
We had a lot of speculation, but none of us had a really good feel for what he was going to do. We thought there was a good chance he was going to come to L.A., and we had felt the Clippers for months, but we didn't know. And I'm going to say I have no insight. I'm not reporting anything. My feel is that everything he's gone through to get here, I don't think he's walking on this team. The challenge is does he sign a long extension or does he keep it short? Does he sign another short deal? And then what do they do? They are another team that has sort of cast its whole lot, and they may not have a championship roster. And so, to be honest with you, to pull the curtain back a little bit, I know that this is going to probably make you laugh, but this morning I have been reading stories about what Steve Ballmer did when he was CEO of Microsoft when he had major products fail. Because he did. They rolled out the Zune, that was supposed to beat the iPad or the iPod, and they rolled out Bing. Remember Bing? You probably did ads for Bing to try to beat Google, and it didn't work out. And he's worth $70 billion because he, really innovated at Microsoft for a long time. And I kind of wanted to see what he did. Did he fire everybody up there, or did I'm actually researching that because I think it's something that's going to be in his lap, and I think that there would be a change, but I'm not sure that changing out, the front office, not the whole front office, but making a change in the front office is going to change the menu that they've got on their plate. The team that they have is kind of the team that they have. They thought it was a championship team, and if it isn't, it's complicated to deal with that.
Brian Windhorst here on the Rich Eisen Show. What happened in Boston? Best you can tell, Brian. What happened with the Celtics?
Well, they had a very rough year this year. They paid the tax of going deep into the bubble. All the teams who went deep into the bubble have had rough years this year. The Heat are gone. The Nuggets are okay, but battered and hanging on for dear life in that series. The Celtics are gone, and the Lakers are in serious trouble being gone tonight. They've had the virus problem, so it's not in a vacuum. On the broad scale, on the 30,000 feet scale, and the reason that Danny Ainge is probably leaving is because over the last 2+ years they've had a massive, and I can't underline this enough, a massive talent drain from that organization, from Kyrie Irving to Al Horford to Gordon Hayward, all walking out the door for nothing. They sign Kemba Walker, and unfortunately for him, he ends up being very injury prone. The draft picks that they held on to, Rich, for years, all these players would come to market. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, who didn't want to play there, Jimmy Butler, all these players would come to market, and the Celtics would make offers, but they wouldn't go all in for that player. And Danny became kind of famous for saying, we were so close, but they held on to those draft picks that they had, those extra picks, and they held on to Tatum and Brown because they were like, these guys are too valuable. And those draft picks haven't panned out. They didn't turn out to be top 3 picks like their earlier picks that they had were. They didn't hit balls out of the park. They drafted guys like Romeo Langford and Aaron Nesmith, and unless you're a Celtics fan, you probably don't know who those players are. They didn't hit home runs on that. And so it's been basically a massive talent drain. And in these last 2 years, as those guys have walked on them, the Nets have passed them. The 76ers have passed them. The Bucks have passed them. The Hawks are on a rocket ship. Looking short-term future, like they just are, their short-term future being an elite team doesn't look great. And I am stunned that Brad Stevens is taking over that job because, and this question was asked in the press conferences yesterday to both Brad and to the owners, why are the Celtics in better position with Brad Stevens as president versus Brad Stevens as coach? Because it's one thing to take a roll of the dice on a guy who has no experience to be your president. At some point, all people who had no experience were given the job. With Red Auerbach, I assume, when he first got the job, there was a roll of the dice on that. It turned out okay. But when you do that and also hurt your coaching position, that's a heck of a gamble. And they didn't give good answers for that, in my view. They gave a word salad. So to me, that's like one of the most important things. And the other thing is, when it comes to coaching, now the coaching hire is like super duper 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 vital. He has got to hit this coaching hire. And if he's going to hire a coach who has experience or is highly desirable, that coach is going to want to bring in his own people. So is Brad going to take this promotion and then put his foot on his entire coaching staff's backside and kick them out onto the street? That's not the Brad Stevens that I know. So he's going to have to be ruthless right out of the gate. So I know that's the question I have about how this coaching hire is going to be. Is this going to be all full bore or not?
So then, was this knee jerk? Was this, something that happened over the weekend? I mean, honestly, or was this in the works? Because from what you just told me, it doesn't sound terribly well thought through, right? I'm assuming with all of that Stevens would already have a coach in mind to take his spot, right? I mean, wouldn't that be part of the plan?
I would assume that as well, but I don't know that. And you're asking the second most important question. The most important question I had yesterday was, why is this better for Brad to be in the front office instead of coaching? The second question is, when did this happen? Did Danny decide, because there had been some rumblings within the league that Danny may take a step back, either to consultant or, flat out, retiring. We were surprised at the timing of it happening on this moment, but that did not knock us over with a feather, those of us who work in the league. The Stevens move did. Now, they have shown in the past that they can be very, very covert with Brad Stevens. Remember when they hired him in this age where almost everything in the NBA is reported, we all hear about it. And trust me, a lot of moves that happen that don't actually get publicly reported, we've heard about it. That Stevens thing blew us out of the water when he got the coaching job, and none of us knew this was coming yesterday. And from what I understand, Rich, the other members of the front office were caught off by that move. Not that Danny would leave. It was that Stevens was being promoted, and his coaching staff was unaware that it was happening. And so the question I have is, was this something that you thought of 6 weeks ago? Was it something that you thought of 6 months ago? Was it something you thought of 6 days ago? When you made this decision as an ownership group to to change your leadership for the first time in 18 years and not have a search, was this something that you sat and talked with Brad for days on end and listened to all of his plans? Or was it something you were just like, oh, that sounds like a good idea? These are all really important questions that, they were not willing to give the answers to. And maybe that's smart and maybe it's worrisome. I don't know.
Well, before I let you go, Brian Windhorst, injury check here. Embiid's knee and pressing Chris Paul's shoulder. What do you have for me on those two big-time name players in the playoffs here?
I think Chris is going to be fine for tonight. I don't think that injury that he had the other night was anywhere near as severe as what he had earlier in the series. I think he should be fine. He'll have the same concerns about the lingering stinger, but I don't think that new injury is a big issue from what I've been told. And, in talking to Doc Rivers and the 76ers players last night, Doc was very non-committal about when Embiid or if Embiid would come back. They're not ruling him out, but saying he's going to come back is, I don't know if I could say that's what Doc said. This is a meniscus tear. He had a meniscus tear in his left knee a couple of years ago and needed surgery. Now, I am not an orthopedist. I definitely know that not all meniscus tears are created equal, and I can't tell you the difference between one versus the other, but most meniscus tears require surgery, and all of them require significant rehab. And I know they say it's small, but Rich. I mean, I doubt there's such thing as a small meniscus tear. It may be small in size, but not small in impact. And in talking to the 76ers players after last night's game, it certainly sounded like they were preparing for the idea that he was going to be out for a while. He did, like I said, he did shoot around before the game yesterday, kind of like in a message to the fans that, I'm not done. But this is no matter how you spin it, and even if he's able to somehow get back out on the court in this next series, or if they can advance to the conference finals, Rich, it is a blow to them. They were playing their best basketball. They won 10 out of 12 going into the end of the regular season to clinch the number one seed. They were so awesome in the first few games of this series. Embiid was averaging 30 points and shooting 67%. He was hitting threes. He was hitting mid-rangers. He was dominating in the post. He was arguably the MVP of the playoffs through the first three games. I know that that's not that meaningful, but I'm just telling you they were full bore ahead. Doc is raving about his conditioning. They're not going to have to play the Bucks and the Nets. They're going to have to be one or the other. They were looking like I could see their lane to the finals, and now their best player is knocked down. And they're all putting a good face on it, and they're all referring to how during the regular season that they went 7-3 when he missed 10 games, and that may be meaningful, but I just cannot see them beating the Nets or the Bucks without Embiid being at or near that MVP level. And maybe he'll surprise me and be there, but it was a huge, huge setback.
Last quick one. And you do expect to have see Anthony Davis tonight? You do expect to see him in Game 6?
I don't expect it. I know.
Okay.
I think he's going to work out before the game, and they're going to take a look at him. But remember, it's not just the groin. He also sprained his left knee.
Right.
And some people might argue, and again, I'm not a physiotherapist, but some people might argue that the left knee may have led to the groin. So you get worried about that kind of stuff. But obviously, it's a make-or-break game, so he's going to probably give it all he can. You're
the best, Brian. Thanks for taking the call. Thanks for making the call. Let's chat soon. We'll see you on the
Enjoy,
jump.
Rich.
You got it. That's Brian Windhorst in studio on the jump on ESPN. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.